Good evening, everybody. I'm glad you tuned in. I'm in Stanley, Idaho, and I'm glad that I get to play some of my new songs for you. I think I'm going to start out with how I ended up in northern Idaho, going to college, working in a sawmill way up north, and then it ended up in the Sierras in Truckee. And when I showed up, there was a little sawmill there, and it made me feel right at home because I could hear this old steam whistle blowing, and it reminded me of my home in northern Idaho. There's no more steam whistles. That old road that I went down, sawmill in a little town, way up north in Idaho, mill town I called home. That old mill, it was one of the best. They shut it down like all the rest. But there is one thing that still remains in this world of constant change. I hear the lonesome steam whistle blow. I hear the lonesome steam whistle blow. I guess that's just the way it goes. But I can still hear that old steam whistle blow. In my mind, I can still hear it blow. You know, when I moved to Truckee in the Sierras, I heard that steam whistle blowing from the mill that they used to have there. It's a rail yard development now. But when I heard that steam whistle, it made me feel like I was at home. A little cabin out in the woods, raising kids and life was good. And then one day it's all gone, and just like that we all move on. I hear the lonesome steam whistle blow. I hear the lonesome steam whistle blow. I guess that's just the way it goes. I can still hear that old steam whistle blow. In my mind, I can still hear it blow. We used to build things to last. Now they come and go too fast. Grab life, take it down a notch. Be grateful for all you got. I hear the lonesome steam whistle blow. Some steam whistle blow. I guess that's just the way it goes. I can still hear that old steam whistle blow. In my mind, I can still hear it blow. Some things you never forget. You guys are, you're all familiar with Virginia City. And this is a song I just wrote this week for a show I'm doing on September the 5th with historical, it's the Truckee Historical Chorus. And we're doing it at the Piper House in Virginia City. So here goes. This is a little twist on something local for the Sierra folks. Well, old Virginia Fenimore named a town after himself. You know, it was just a bunch of shacks and tents on the shelf. He broke a bottle of whiskey to commemorate the town. In 1859, Virginia City's still around. Well, I'm here in Virginia City, looking for the Comstock load. I hear there's a lot of silver, maybe some gold. I know in no time I'll have a mansion on the hill. The queen of the Comstock won't let me down until I make a couple mil. Oh, Juliet's a dance hall angel. She looks after me when I'm down in those mines, in those streets. I think they got more tunnels than New York City's got streets. Crocker, Hearst, and Stanford made more money than anyone had ever seen. Oh, the Territorial Enterprise newspaper on the street. You know, even old Mark Twain was a writer what is seen. That's where you'll see the names of the men who died the night before. Shot dead in the bucket of blood, and they're left there on the floor. Now they're left there dying. Yeah, that's what happens. Well, you know, not everything really turns out for the best, and you show up looking for gold and then you lose it all and you lose the rest. Not everybody's dream always comes true, but you know, sometimes there's a silver lining. You never know what can happen when you set out to do something great. Well, that Territorial Enterprise newspaper that old Mark Twain was writing in, you know, he called it like he's seen and was humorous. But that's where you found all the names of the men who died the night before. You find yourself dead and dying on the bucket of blood saloon floor. Now I left here dying on this barroom floor. I lost everything that I just came here looking for. I might be better off a ghost. It don't seem like it be haunting hotel rooms and scaring the decent folks. Well, I didn't get a mansion, but I'm up here on the hill. You know, it's kind of a thrill, but I was quite a thrill. You know, old Henry Comstock, he put me in this grave. I'd be cussing him if he was standing right here today. Oh, I guess that's just the way it goes when you're looking for gold. You never know what you're going to get. Sometimes you get rich, and sometimes you just end up haunting everybody because you didn't. Anyway, that's a start of a song, and you know what? I like writing songs. I try to write every day, every week, and I'm always just looking for a reason. And the folks with the Truckee Historical Review confronted me and said, "You got a song about Virginia City?" I said, "No, but I'll get one." And so that was the first attempt at making that song work. Now, when I get these inspirations for writing, sometimes it's not when I'm sitting at a desk. It's when I'm out, maybe out on the Salmon River, or I'm out on a hike, or I'm out on a ski, or I'm on a bike, where the rhythmic thing is kind of going on, and you just kind of get this thing in your head, and the idea latches onto the rhythm, and the next thing you know, words start coming. So here's one for you. That's right, it's a waltz. Like I say, these are all been written just the last few weeks, maybe. So I'm glad you get to share them. There ain't a breeze blowing through the pines on this fading summer light. I don't think it'll ever get dark, but the day gives into the night. And the moon is a little sliver of light, and the stars are shining, shining so bright. The only sound is the beat of your heart when you're standing alone in the dark. When you're standing alone in the dark. Now this same old porch feels pretty good. I might be out here till dawn. The river sings me a melody, and then my troubles are gone. And the moon is a little sliver of light, and the stars are shining, shining so bright. The only sound is the beat of your heart when you're standing alone in the dark. In the silence, you can hear the dark. You know, it's like a song that you can't get out of your head, can't get it off your mind. The harder you try not to think about it, the harder it is to find. And the moon is a little sliver of light, and the stars are shining, shining so bright. The only sound is the beat of your heart when you're standing alone in the dark. The silence that you can hear in the dark when you're standing alone in the dark. Well, there you go. You know, sometimes, oh, I see that Max and Judith, and Trudy, Tony Reed, hey, good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. It's great to share my songs coming right out of the heart of the Sawtooth Mountains here in Stanley, Idaho. I try to make them relatable to everybody, but you know, I'm living my life in mountain time. I'm writing songs about mountain time, and it is not a time zone. It's a state of mind. And so that kind of leads me up to this next song. It's the same sort of thing about where I get inspirations, and a lot of times it's down by the river, and you hear the river flowing, and the breeze is kind of blowing, and your mind just gets completely clear of all the clutter. I don't want to describe all the clutter in all of our lives these days, but I guess I could say, don't turn on the TV, don't listen to the news. Maybe check the pulse, but you know, stay away from it. Down by the river, the wind it starts to blow. Dark clouds are rolling in, man, I think it's time to go. I think I know a shortcut through the willows on the river shore. I tip my hat into the wind, and I think it's time to go, yeah. And the rain starts to go from the day you were born till the day you die. You know this old life is gonna give you one hell of a ride. Yeah, this old life is gonna give you one hell of a ride. Well, my mama taught me how to be ready. Life can be pretty hard. Sometimes you're sitting real pretty, sometimes you wear the scars. You know, sometimes you're sitting real pretty, sometimes you wear the scars. From the day you were born till the day you die, this whole world is gonna give you one hell of a ride. You know, this whole life can give you one hell of a ride. I was goes up on the mountain, I could see for miles. What goes up must come down. Life is one big trial. From the day you were born till the day you die, you know this old world is gonna give you one hell of a ride. Yeah, this old world is gonna give you one hell of a ride. Right? You know how that is. The ride comes in a lot of different flavors depending on where you're at. Could be in the city, could be out in a ranch in the middle of Idaho. It's all one big ride. My producer, Michelle Erskine, that's ME Entertainment, says there's a lot of folks out there listening. That is so cool. Patty, Marianne Porter, Kelly and Laura, Gary Swanson, he's got one of my guitars I built in, Jill Platt, Todd Landry, Maria, yeah, Maria. Oh man, it's so good to be connected with you guys. I feel very fortunate that I get to be in the middle of nowhere because it is the ultimate in social distancing. As Michelle wrote in today, she ran across a herd of about 40 elk, and I think they outnumber the people in town. It's great, nothing but ski trails and blue sky and living here in a bubble. I want to tell you a little story about the tallest mountain in Idaho, Mount Bora. All the water that runs off the Lost River Range, it flows right down into the Big Lost River. And they call it the Big Lost River because it just disappears. Maybe 30 miles down the road, it disappears. All this water in this raging river disappears into the lava beds, craters of the moon. People have an idea about where it goes, but they don't really know for sure. A lot of theories. And how can a river just disappear right into the porous ground? Where does it go? And I always wondered, where does that river flow out of the Lost River Range? Maybe into 1,000 springs in the Snake River Plain. It disappears in the lava beds in the desert south of town. Secrets of the Big Lost River, never to be found. It's just a mystery flowing underground. Nobody really knows truth to be found. All the rain and snow, where does it go? Only the Big Lost River knows. You know, only the Big Lost River knows. Only the river knows. I like all the theories and all the guesses, but they still haven't really proved where that water went. That's one of the things I like about Idaho. There's a lot of mysteries. It's remote, it's wilderness. You can't take anything for granted. There'll be no self-driving cars on some of these roads. Now the river never used to be called the Big Lost River. It was called the Day River, after old John Day. You know, from Oregon, the John Day River, John Day, the town of John Day, and of course the John Day Dam on the Columbia River. We all know about that one. Oregon calls him his own. But John Day died in Idaho. Now old John Day, he named that river after himself. They buried him right next to the river in his failing health. They never did ever find a grave where old John was laid. He disappeared just like the river on his judgment day. He disappeared just like the river on his judgment day. It's just a mystery flowing underground. Nobody really knows truth to be found. All the rain and snow, where does it go? Only the big lost river knows. Only the big lost river knows. Only the big lost river knows. Hey Eric, you got any secrets? You know where you take them? You take them to the big lost river. You just toss them in. They just disappear. Now you got a secret want no one to know. Throw it in that big lost river and away it goes. It'll never make the ocean, it won't reappear. Just like the big lost river, it just disappears. And just like the big lost river, it just disappears. It's just a mystery flowing in the ground. Nobody really knows truth to be found. All the rain and snow, nobody knows. Only the big lost river knows. Only the big lost river knows. Yeah, only the big lost river knows. Only the river knows. Only the river really knows. Only the river knows. And you really only know so much. But what I do know is that I really miss a lot of the friends I've made in Truckee and a lot of the associations I made with the folks there, including folks like Sean, who we worked together on historical preservation. And I loved writing songs and working with the folks that valued our history and putting it to song and keeping it alive. So, excuse me. Guess I need more tequila or something. Anyway, good to see you all out there. I like writing about history. I like having a reason to write something. And sometimes I wait for something to come along. Historical places, people, things, events. In the case of the other day, or a couple months ago, I got a gig at the Dusty Mule, Elk Bend, Idaho. And of course, my favorite, Casadores. And anyway, the name of the place is the Dusty Mule. And I had to write a song for the event because it's what I like doing, showing up with a song about something relevant to the people I'm connecting with. I like writing songs about our environment, and that doesn't mean about eco-environment, but the environment that we live in. It's a cattle ranching community, it's a ski community, all that kind of thing. And so trying to make it relevant to the listeners that are sitting in the seats, not so much on the internet that might be in a big city or a small town, but I'm looking face to face at folks that know about the Big Lost River. They know that river. And in this case, this is well, it's almost Valentine's Day, so I have a love song. And as you all know, as some of you know, mules are the combination of a donkey and a mare. Mules don't genetically breed, and you don't get two mules to make a mule. You have to have a donkey and a mare. There's the love story right there. That lucky old donkey, that Jack donkey, gets to find the most beautiful mare he's ever seen, and next thing you know, they got a donkey. They got a mule. So here's the story. He was a Jack who worked hard all the time, hauling freight and timber to the mine. She was a good-looking Palomino mare, turning heads at the county fair. Jack saw her running in the field that day. He was looking so beautiful she couldn't look away. Staring into her big brown eyes, she said, someday I'm gonna make her mine. There wasn't a road or a fence that could keep them apart. Jack was stubborn, she knew it from the start. But this old Jack, he ain't no fool. She gave him a wink, they had a little dusty mule. She gave him a big old wink, they had a little dusty mule. And after 45 years, that old mule passed on. Everybody grieved the day she's gone. So if you don't forget about the little love story. Well, that little dusty mule grew up to be smart, working real hard, stealing everybody's heart. That sure-footed Molly was one of a kind. She had two big ears, let you know what's on her mind. There wasn't a road or a fence that could keep them apart. Jack was stubborn, she knew it from the start. But this old Jackie ain't no fool. She gave him a wink, they had a little dusty mule. She gave him a big old wink, they had a little dusty mule. So the next time you're out with your lady or a friend on the Salmon River Road around Elk Bend, there's a bar and a grill called the Dusty Mule. Just stop on in and pull up a stool. There wasn't a road or a fence that could keep them apart. Jack was stubborn, she knew it from the start. But this old Jack, he ain't no fool. She gave him a wink, they had a little dusty mule. She gave him a big old wink, they had a little dusty mule. Okay, and there's, well, that's half of the farm animal songs I'm going to do for you. Well, it's not quite like that, but we're living here at the ranch. There's at the Idaho Rocky Mountain Ranch here in Stanley. There's a really great history about the cattle ranch itself. And Edmund Bogart had been living down in Pocatello, and up to 1952, he decided to throw in the towel with his car business, and he wanted to raise cattle. And the Rockmore cattle is what he came up with as his prize breed. These are the big boys right here. I don't know if you can see that, but the Rockmore cattle, those are some big fat boys right there. And that was Edmund's pride and joy, because he was raising the best beef around. And the reason was because this high mountain grass up here in the Sawtooth Mountains is potent. It's not no valley flatland grass. This is high potent grass. Well, you might raise hay in Texas where the snow don't grow, but up in the Sawtooth Mountains, that's where the good hay grows. Well, the cows get fat much quicker on that high mountain grass. Purebred Hereford bulls and heifers built to last. Rockmore cattle, mighty fine beef. Rockmore cattle, they can't be beat. Hereford bulls, ground blue ribbon winners, the best in town. When you raise them high in the mountains, you take a pretty big chance, but the fat and happy at the Idaho Rocky Mountain Ranch. Well, Edmund Bogart, he built this ranch in 1952. He didn't like the business of selling cars to me and you. He set out to raise some cattle different than all the rest. He found the perfect pastures and he did his best. Rockmore cattle, mighty fine beef. Rockmore cattle, they can't be beat. Her bulls, her bound, blue ribbon winners, the best in town. You raise them high up in the mountains, you take a pretty big chance, but the fat and happy at the Idaho Rocky Mountain Ranch. Well, now it's a guest ranch. There ain't no Herefords around. I like to think that the guests are fat and happy because of the good ground, but they come here to play and ski and hike a bit. It sure makes them happy. It sure keeps them fit. Well, the ranch even had a hot spring to keep the cattle warm. You gotta keep those boys growing. They'll be big before too long. I can tell you the stories. I can show you the wards. Rockmore cattle were hard to beat on the auction floor. Rockmore cattle, mighty fine beef. Rockmore cattle, they can't be beat. Hereford bulls, probate bound, blue ribbon winner, the best in town. When you raise them high up here in the mountains, you take a pretty big chance, but the fat and happy at the Idaho Rocky Mountain Ranch, you know they're fat and happy at the Idaho Rocky Mountain Ranch. You know they're fat and happy here in Idaho at the Rocky Mountain Ranch. I see a couple questions. What am I doing in Idaho? Well, let's see. I eat, I sleep, I ski, and I write songs. Well, that's it in a nutshell. I kind of hide out from the rest of the world. And it ain't that bad. And, oh, Nancy Barna, good to see you. Good to see, glad you see me. Do I see her? No, I don't. Dang, this isn't a Zoom meeting. Now, Idaho is famous for the River of No Return. I know there's a lot of you out there that have rafted the middle fork of the Salmon River. Well, the River of No Return, the Salmon River, is one of the wildest waters in the United States. And you got to really test your mettle as a rafter to be able to go down these rivers. But you know, it wasn't always rubber rafts that went down that river. They used to haul timber from Salmon all the way down to Riggins and Lewiston. They first started out by just trying to turn the logs loose and just letting them go down the river. That didn't work because they just jammed up everything, created a lot of log dams. Sean, if you're still listening, you'll love this history. So they got the bright idea. They'd lash all this timber together and they would ride them as rafts, not as rafts, as scows down the river. They'd have an oar on each end. They weighed 3 and 4 tons. You think you can go down the river now on a rubber raft? You should have tried it back then on a pile of logs and timber. It was called the River of No Return. When you go down this river, you may never come back. So many disappeared, we just lost track. The river can take you to a watery grave. Did they do it for the thrill or the money they made on the river of no return? One-way street, you quickly learn on that river of no return. 4 tons of lumber, 2 men on a boat. They did their best, try and stay afloat. The strongest men knew how to survive. They always made it to the end, dead or alive on the river, no return. One-way street, you quickly learn on that river, no return. They were flat-bottom boats, they called them a scow. Through the turbulent water they would plow. 2 hands on a sweep, hold on tight. With a little luck, you'll be alright. On the river, no return. It's a one-way street, you quickly learn on that river, no return, no return. You know, Lewis and Clark were coming up the Missouri River trying to find a waterway to the Pacific. And when they found the headwaters of the Salmon, followed it down, they realized when they got to the River of No Return section that there was no way they could do it, and they turned around. They hadn't found the Columbia yet, but after that long journey up the Missouri, and the mountains just kept going and going and going, and they could eke a little bit waterway. The River of No Return stopped them cold. Even Lewis and Clark, 1805, said the torrent of water was hard to survive. A route to the ocean looking pretty bleak. They all turned around at Common Creek on the river of no return. The one-way street, now you quickly learn on the river of no return. Running water like that, whether you're Lewis and Clark or whether you were a logger, man, it took a lot of guts. It was a livelihood. It wasn't recreation. They did it to stay alive. And the loggers would go down maybe to Lewiston, and then they would come all the way back up. If you know the terrain in Idaho, to get back up to Salmon City in those days, on horseback took days and days. They got paid by the trip. A lot of them never came back. Either they didn't want to ever do it again, or they just perished along the way. There were steep canyon walls, the white water churns. It didn't really matter how much money you earned. The Nez Perce knew for 1,000 years the river would bring you a whole lot of tears. On the river, no return is a one-way street. You quickly learn on that river, no return, no return, no return, no return, no return, no return, no return on that river. There you have it. That was one tough river, and it took serious men to pull that off. People just don't do that kind of hard work anymore. So I like to keep that kind of history alive. And what? Oh my gosh! Stop the presses. There are people on the East Coast that stayed up past 10 o'clock tonight, merry fellows, that stayed up late to hear this. It is so cool. Mary, I'm glad you made it. I guess I'm not putting you to sleep. You're still up, mostly through the set. And Crystal Lucht, glad you're listening in. And of course, one of my favorite mentor projects of all time, Noah Erskine, the son of Michelle Erskine, who is the producer of this show today, Emmy Entertainment. She does a great job of keeping us musicians, in gigs when there's live gigs. And it's people like Michelle who are really suffering, as with a lot of musicians trying to be out there live. So I appreciate you all listening to a live broadcast because we can't really be here in person, but good. I'm glad that you're there. That's awesome. Now, I don't really know how to introduce this song. This was something that I was riding my bike out on the Fisher Creek Trail, and fall colors were just starting to come in, and there was this big line of red colors in a short scrub bush that were lining the trail, and it looked like fire. And there was fires going on, California to Idaho, all over the West. There were fires burning. Forest fires, political fires, eco fires. It just seems like everything was on fire in my head. And this is where I got the inspiration for this song. And I felt like I was riding through fire, not figuratively, not literally, but figuratively, just what is going on in the world? It's like, man, put out the fires. Smoke on the mountain, fire on the trail. Where we are going, no one can tell. Fires are burning everywhere you look. Tall, dry grass, one match is all it took. Fires are burning on both sides of the road. Maybe down the middle is a good place to go. It burns through our neighborhoods, out of control, burning our hearts and burning up our soul. Now there's smoke on the mountain and fire on the trail. Where we going, no one can tell. Fires are burning everywhere you look. One small match was all it took. Now they call it global warming, but take a second look. There's a fire in our soul and read it like a book. Fanning the flame, know where to turn. Open your eyes or everything will burn. Now there's smoke on the mountain and fire on the trail. Where we going, no one can tell. Fires are burning everywhere you look. Tall, dry grass, one match is all it took. Well, I'll meet you at the junction, Chalice, Idaho. Friday night, that's where everybody goes. There's music and laughter, fills the air. Smile at your neighbor, let them know you care, 'cause there's smoke on the mountain, fire on the trail. Where we going, no one can tell. Fires are burning everywhere you look. Now it's small dry grass, one match is all it took. I hear the rain is coming to slow the fire down, blow out the smoke, save this little town. But the people are screaming that they got a better plan. They wanna burn it down, start over again. But there's smoke on the mountain, fire on the trail. Where we going, no one can tell. Fires are burning everywhere you look. Tall, dry grass, one match is all it took. Yeah, one small match is all it took. Fires are burning everywhere you look. Annie Miller stayed up late Eastern time to see the show. Annie, so cool that you made that effort. I mean, it's way past your bedtime. And Greg Zerbel, you're always up. You probably just woke up. Did you ever do anything about those, the bad teeth thing you had going on? Did you ever fix that? Good to see you guys. My friends at the Truckee Historical Society are some of the best folks I know. They're awesome. I love the fact that they celebrate where we came from, keep it alive, and Truckee history, Idaho history, California history, however you look at it, it's worth celebrating and keeping alive. And that's what I like to do in my music. Some of those stories, they beg to be retold, and I like to grab onto some of these stories because they haven't really changed that much. We all haven't changed that much. Technology changes, but the human spirit doesn't. And I like bringing that out in some of my songs about the historical figures, places, people, and things, because it's relevant today. Anyway, it's all a wild ride, and life is like a rodeo. So I want to leave you with this song right here. Or maybe time for I don't know if anybody had a request from something they really wanted to hear, but I'm trying to bring life to this old land. I got my irrigating boots and shovel in hand. I'm in a hayfield, grass up to my thigh, white clouds and clear blue sky. I gotta cut this hay before it starts to rain. Something breaks down, it's always the same, and then a neighbor steps in, lends me a hand. You can count on the people who work this land. I'm trying to hold on without letting go, kinda like riding on a Wild West rodeo. Wild West rodeo. Life is like a rodeo. It takes time, you gotta let it grow. Plant the seeds, let the water flow. The horses don't care if you're black or white. They need to get fed on a cold winter night, and they're trying to hold on without letting go, kinda like riding on a Wild West rodeo. Wild West rodeo. Wild West rodeo. Growth always comes from the bottom up. You gotta start your life with a loving cup. I don't think change comes from the top. It starts from your heart when the fighting stops. Trying to hold on without letting go, kinda like riding on a Wild West rodeo. Wild West rodeo. Wild West rodeo. yourself short. At least you tried. You come down hard. You learn from defeat. Start dancing when you feel it in your feet, and then hold on tight without letting go. Kinda like riding on a Wild West rodeo. Wild West rodeo. Wild West rodeo. Here's a Wild West rodeo. Life is like a rodeo sometimes. You know what? I see some requests up here, and there's a request up there called Lola. It's about Mount Lola and about Lola Montez. Now I'm going to take the liberties, because I think somebody suggested that because they're a history lover like myself. And I have another great story about another woman just like Lola who made a big impact on early life in mining camps and in society in general, because mining camps and logging camps were just not a place for women. They could have been, but they were pretty rough. And there's this really great story about Lizzie King. You see, she came from Bodie, California, or Nevada, Bodie. Came all the way up to the Yankee Fork River, up to the Yankee Fork mines, and she started a saloon called the Yankee Fork Dance Hall. And it wasn't a brothel, it was a saloon, a dance hall. I don't know what else was going on there, but nonetheless, she was an entrepreneur, and her husband was he was a real estate guy, selling real estate in the mid-1800s. And he was killed in a bad real estate deal. Well, Miss Lizzie King was the most beautiful person around. She was a smart business lady. She was sought after by everybody, including the man who owned the mine. But she would never have him. And this is a crazy, crazy story, because the owner of the mine wouldn't take any other answer. He had to have had to have Lizzie as his wife. Well, Lizzie got married, and what did the mine owner do? He killed them both. Put them in his own private cemetery. Because he's the owner of the mine, he gets away with murder. Of course, remorse sets in all those cases where it's a love triangle or a crime of passion, and he ends up moving to Stanley, living in a little cabin. And he's disappeared from everybody. Nobody knows where he went. And after the winter was over, they went up to his cabin, and they found him there with with a picture of Lizzie King in a locket in his hand. He died with her picture in his hand. I don't make this stuff up, but this is in the same vein as Lola. This is Lizzie King. She was a golden-haired beauty. She always smiled, she never wore a frown. In the summer of 1878, from Bodie she rode into town. With her man, she rode into town. You see, Lizzie opened up her own saloon. It was called the Yankee Fork Dance Hall. She lost her husband when a deal went down, selling real estate in a rough mine in town. He was selling real estate in an old rough mine in town. Well, Lizzie's hand now was fair to court. there were rumors abound. And old Franklin, the man who owned the mine, she always turned him down. Yeah, she always turned him down. Everybody loved Lizzie King. She sang a faithful tune. Now she's in the graveyard behind her two men. She died way too soon. Her golden hair was not for sale, like the gold Franklin's digging from the ground. It was something that she would never do. It was something, a deal that would never go down. It was a deal that would never go down. You know, and then a handsome young dealer came to town. She was working at Lizzie's saloon. He swept her off her feet and they were married real soon. Her smile could light up a room. Everybody loved Lizzie King. She sang a faithful tune. She's in the graveyard between her two men and died way too soon. And now the marriage lasted for 6 short days, and the jealous lover shot them both. He got away with murder. He said he never did it under oath. Said he never did it under oath. So Franklin, he moved up towards Stanley, a little cabin, placer mining claim. He died a lonely man. Some said he went insane. Yeah, some said he was insane. Now her photo in a golden locket is clutched in Franklin's cold dead hands. A love he could never marry, it was a love he could never have. It was a love he could never have. Those murder ballads of the old days, you know. Now they're gangster murder stories, but I like the old ones. Well, what do we have time for? There's all kinds of stuff. Let's see. Gary, how do you like to... Does it sound as good as yours? Donna, oh my gosh, it's a long time. Good to see you're listening. And Gary Miller and Sharon Pretzel. Oh my gosh. I don't know. What else? What do we have time for here?
About 2 more minutes.
2 minutes.
Hi, Gary.
You know what? I would just like to take this time. I'd like to take the time to say thanks for listening. You guys have been putting up for an hour's worth of music, and I write songs all the time. And so for me, I like just kind of throwing them out there. Most of the songs you just heard are all been written just in the last month or so. There was maybe an older one in there, but in these crazy times, I feel very fortunate to have something to latch on to keep my sanity, and snow is one of them. And I hear for the folks out in the Sierras, for some of my Sierra friends, there is snow coming your way. I love the snow here in Stanley because it stays cold, so there's no snow melt. There's no January thaw. When it turns winter, it's a normal morning is 0 degrees, so the snow stays perfect, and it's awesome. Like I say, I'm going to be in Truckee and doing some gigs. Hopefully, Michelle is we're gonna work out a little bit of a tour on around September 5th and the end of August, around September, when I'm doing the show for the Truckee Historical Review in Carson City at the Piper House. probably a Monday night club get together with some of my old guitar picking buddies, and Cottonwood, it's wide open. Maybe we'll do a little Streets of Truckee reunion mini show, or maybe we just try to pull off another Streets of Truckee show. I'm trying to use that same model that we used for the Streets of Truckee in the streets of wherever I'm at. So any place in Idaho, I'm putting together those same sort of elements about celebrating history through music, costume, and theater. And it really brings that alive. It people can look anything up on Google. They can find out their history question about a particular person. But when you bring it to them through music, whether it's grade school kids or whether it's people at a dinner show, they remember it. We take it home when music comes into our lives and brings us a message. And my message is to keep history alive through historical things that have shaped us and kind of put us where we're at. Some of those things are, we don't want to remember them because times were different. But I don't want to forget them. That's how we learn. We move forward. We learn from our mistakes, and we just keep going forward. Again, Michelle Erskine is on her way to Montana. It was so good to stop by and put a little bit of a glimmer into the cold nights here by videoing everything. Oh, and we got Barry Shelton. I don't know if Barry knows, but
Barry Slayton from the Blues Monster.
Oh, yeah, Barry, right?
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know if Barry knows, but I have one of his old guitars. It is a SNL. It's like a Telecaster. It's a metal flake silver sparkle. Barry, you remember that? Anyway, thank you all for listening. We have one more thing. Oh, wait a minute. Come around.
What?
Come
No,
here.
no, no.
Come here. Come here.
No.
Come here. Come here.
No,
There's
but you
people
should
that
tell
know
them.
Michelle. Come here, Michelle.
Yes, I'm not going to go behind the camera or in front of the camera.
She's not dressed appropriately.
Where can they get your current CDs, and when will the new CDs be released?
I have CDs and videos available at truckieblair.com. I have a new CD called Airstream Dreams that has not been released yet. And I have 2 more CDs about stuff I've written in Idaho. The latter part, the songs that you heard tonight, are of the second CD. So there's plenty of songs to download. Nobody does CDs anymore. It's really hard to get that out there, so you'd have to listen to it online. But if you just go to truckieblair.com, you can find all the music that I have published out there, and there are still 3 CDs worth of material that is coming down the pipe soon. So I don't know if I can just keep up with recording and songwriting. They're kind of like 2 separate things. I need to have 2 people involved in my life, one to record what I write.
I have some new venues for you this year.
Michelle says some new venues. She's been visiting Idaho. Yes, it's pretty funny. She saw 40 head of elk coming into town out of Stanley. She goes, Richard, you should have seen all the moose I just saw. Oh gosh, I laughed. It was good. Anyway, good having a laugh with y'all. Good night.